Oh, you know what time it is, folks? Another CIRF report. Third week in May 2021. It still feels like it's sort of winter and weird weather, weird things going on in the world. I don't think that anybody's really thinking it's unexpected what's happened, considering Venus was in all those weird alignments. And I got to get on my tippy toes to get to this right. Okay. So if you thought that Venus did what it did last week, finances and maybe relationships in your life, just wait until you see what happens to your ego this week. It's a tumbling ego. And I forgot to get my highlighter out. So let's do that now. And this is our summary slide. We had problems with finance stuff and financial hiccups. That was like the last couple of weeks. Well, that same alignment now is going to be on the sun. And so astrologically speaking, our focus this week is going to be on ego and how we handle that and how we view the world and whether or not we're going to be putting confusion and seeing disarray. I guess you could already say that that's already existing, and it, you won't be wrong, but just wait till you see this alignments. We're going to talk astrology day by day. We're going to break that down. And there's a lot of just different things going on, from a waxing moon to a T-square on the sun to a lot of squares, a lot of inconjuncts, etc. We'll talk all about that day to day. And then we'll talk about the I-Ching. This one's an interesting one. And wait until you see what happens when you put that change line in. You could probably see it now. It has to do with yin and yang. And that's going to be interesting. But the influence today is overview. And it's sort of like trying to grasp the full picture. That's what we're trying. We're stepping back, looking at the picture, and trying to ascertain better awareness inside of ourselves, outside of ourselves, just sort of like getting an assessment. That's sort of what this influence is like. And so what that means is it probably feels disorienting. If you're pausing, stopping, and trying to get the assessment of the picture, then there's probably something causing you to do that, which is sort of maybe disoriented, maybe confusion. And that goes right into a tumbling ego. And then finally, the dream bot, or the collective unconscious, it's day residue. I mean, wood and lumber are in there, which, that's like the number one escalating price item right now in terms of inflation. But there's also the war breaking out in the Middle East, yada, yada. You guys know the deal here. So we'll get in. I'm going to spend some time on the dream bot, by the way, because there's some weird linguistics in there that I want to highlight. But that's what we have, folks. And we're going to drill this down each individual day so you can get an idea for the differences in the energies. But most importantly, it's how to behave, how to act. The right action is going to be towards the end of this video in the solution section. And at the very end, I've got a solution slide to give you a full summary of, we do the same triangulation process with different forms of energies to see what we need to be doing, how we need to be behaving to maximize this energy that's afforded to us. So hang on. We're going to talk about the collective unconscious first when we come back. Hang on. And again, welcome to everybody for another CIRF report, making sure that you have your friends subscribe and your family, because I'm pretty sure that these various technologies, the I-Ching, the dream bot is the collective unconscious in the form of people's dreams, the collection at the subconscious at a collective level. That's what this is. And if we know that, we know where the world's headed. So this can accurately predict the future. Sometimes it gives us some wacky stuff. It's not 100%. There's also interpretation things, but when it comes down to big things coming, you're going to see these in the various places, the astrology, the collective unconscious, the people's dreams, but also the I-Ching. It was dead on last week. The timing was a little bit off that I had said, but pretty darn close. So what are we looking at in the collective dreams? I find this very interesting. The word April is up at the top. That's sort of unusual. I mean, we're middle May and we're just now seeing April showing up. So that's interesting. Is that the past April or is that the next April? I don't know. But then we have a couple of linguistic sets, and I find these, one of them a day residue, changing forest, nightmare battle. Okay, so the nightmare and battle, I believe, has to do with day residue from the Middle East, but the word forest is in there. And that's interesting because wood is later on in the DreamBot. So that's day residue from the quickly increasing price of wood and lumber. All right. So I don't know if there's like a war going on for lumber or if this is indicative of the Middle East. Linguistic set number 2, this one I really like, lucidity week closer. So what does that mean? To me, it means, what is lucidity week? I think that has to do with the Great Awakening. That's just me though, and it's getting closer. Other than that, our memes are pretty clear. Conflict and battle, that's the red flags, the red arrows. And then nature, wood and hill and forest. That's all very natural stuff. And so nature and conflict. I don't think they don't have to be together. I'm not suggesting that they're together, but it wouldn't surprise me if there is a war for lumber or some sort of battle, and probably going on right now for lumber. Who knows? But there you have it. There's the collective unconscious. Let's get into the astrology. And before we start this, we got to give you a summary. There's our summary. But I wanted to give a couple shout outs. Now, the downside to this is people going to feel like I have favorites, and I don't. But I really liked these comments. I appreciate everybody's comment, but not for me to say, it's so wise what you offered to the collective. Our miracles are coming, and I'm grateful for our current content, or our current and incoming abundance. You help grow the wisdom, gratitude, and abundance. Thank you for spreading the positives. Thank you. But the point here is that there are I don't know what gender, not for me to say is, but they say there are no positive or negative experiences, only positive and negative reactions. I thought that was a foot stomper. Way to go. Jane, how are you? She says something that I don't think that I emphasize, but I think it's so true with the Mars in Cancer and trine with Uranus. Maybe opportunity is to procrastinate or pause. It's like a helpful break before a bounce. I think that was ingenious, Jane. Thank you for that added benefit. And then T.A. White says, sweet, I'm ready to ruffle some feathers. Good news for you, T.A. You've got another week to do it. All right. Here's our overview. We have Pluto still in retrograde. We have here pretty soon, Saturn is going to do the retrograde and keep this square alive. Saturn square Uranus. It's the change. It's the insight. It's the independence chiseling away at the status quo, and it's pressurized. And when Saturn goes into retrograde, it's going to get more pressurized. Okay. Jupiter, interestingly, goes out of Aquarius this week, very early on this week, goes into Pisces, but then you're going to see Jupiter come back into Aquarius at the end of July 28th, and we'll spend some time in back in Aquarius. So we're going to get a little taste of Pisces and the ancient home, and Jupiter is back home. And so it's that very spiritual side of Jupiter, optimism, but more connectedness and the interconnectedness, interplay of Pisces. All right. And a lot of optimism there. We have a lot of green here, but when we go through the slides, you're going to see it's not just all peachy keen. All right. Unfortunately. So let's get started. Thursday, the 13th. Now, this is what I wanted to say in the intro, or I tried to say in the intro. Remember where Venus was with, she had a trine to Pluto and a square over to Jupiter. And so we projected that financial hiccups, relationship, sort of like death along those lines. But Pluto is not just death. Remember, it's rebirth as well. And so hopefully all that happened to Venus is rebirthed as well at this point. Now the same cycle goes into the sun. And I'm going to darken this up a little bit so you can see where my cursor is. But the sun now has a trine over to Pluto. So what is that? It's easy to feel scared or the end or death or collapse to the ego. It's easy to feel that. It can also feel very subconsciously powerful. That's the other Pluto meme. It represents the deep part of our psyche. All that is easily bubbling up into the sun in Taurus, or our ego. But the sun also has a square over to Jupiter. So there's pressure here. There's conflict to optimism. We're separated away from, feeling wise or optimistic or advanced. And so that doesn't feel all that good. And so the ego can be going tumbling, just like Venus did in the last couple of weeks. So now it's the ego's turn. Ego is in Taurus. So, your sense of reality, your sense of possession, worth, those are sort of the Taurus memes. Those are going to be in question, or those could be in question, or those could get confused for the ego. So that's going to be here all week long, or most of the week. And then you're going to see the final day is a T-square on the sun. Next, as I mentioned before, Jupiter last 2 minutes. So getting very close to the cusp going into Pisces. And then, everything I just said about the ego. Nope. Sorry. Different thing. Disregard. Okay. So the square that we always talk about each week, it seems like Uranus square Saturn. So this is the pressure system that's pitting the big change in insight and freedom, pitting that against the government, the status quo, the way things have always been. All those are going head to head, and they're chiseling out. So they're pumping in pressure. Well, look at all the trines coming off of Saturn. And so those trines get outletted. So that pressure that Uranus and Saturn are fighting with and producing, that pressure gets outletted to your thoughts. That's Mercury. Your feelings, that's the moon, and then even your relationships. So anyway, that can be a positive thing when you're looking at all of these entities or planets in a very adaptable sign of Gemini. So there could be sort of this backdoor opportunity. I won't call them pure opportunities because they're not sextiles, but I'm calling them energetic opportunities with, your thoughts, your feelings, relationship. And it could be a nice offset to what the ego's going to feel or could feel this week, this big ouch that I have here. All right, with that, let's move on to Friday. And for here, what we pick up, what's new, is Mercury square Neptune. And this could really produce the same sort of feeling that we talked about with the pressure on the sun or the ego. So as the ego is tumbling, now your thoughts are getting confused, pressurized, conflicted with dreams or fantasy, or it accentuates this. And so that's all related to each other. It's the same sort of meme. It's like losing trust in yourself or the world around you, especially if your mind and the way that you're communicating and thinking are seeing illusions, i.e. Neptune. So be aware of that. It's a very confusing day. And if we bring in what Jane recommended, right here is that same thing. It's Mars is in a fall. And so maybe lazy, maybe procrastinating, maybe running in water is the metaphor. And so maybe it's going to be less action to doing less. And that's exactly what we're seeing with the I-Ching. We're going to get to that later, but it's like taking a step back and just kind of viewing things, getting an assessment of where things are. So it's all really related. It's related to confusion, not to mention now Jupiter, the wise one, goes into confusing Pisces, but he's not all that confused. This is his home, or ancient home, or rulership in the ancient world. So right back where he's comfortable, but it is the more spiritual sense of Jupiter. And I think that's the solace here, is that Jupiter, the wise one, the philosopher, going into home of Pisces. But it doesn't feel all that real or that reality. So it sort of matches what the context is here. On Saturday, going into the weekend, we pick up a new opportunity or a new sextile, and that's with this pressurized Neptune and Pluto. So somehow your inner power, remember, your subconscious is always by its very nature bubbling up into your dreams. So writing down dreams can be a very powerful thing. Now, they might look like death, they might look like nightmares, but in reality, it's an opportunity. We're talking in the weekend. There's a rare opportunity and this is going to be around a while, I think. So, but rare, and this doesn't happen so very often because these slow planets move around the zodiac so slow. So there's going to be this opportunity for a while to write down your subconscious dreams, even if they're scary, and really have an opportunity to, figure out where you want to go, what you want to achieve as your Capricorn Pluto, your Capricorn subconscious. And so it's a nice time to really reevaluate what you're building in your life. That's what these opportunities are. And then for a couple days, so we'll just call it over the weekend, you have the moon. It's close to approaching and passing Mars. Mars is already in that fall, running through water. Now you've got even more emotions. The moon, home to Cancer. And so very nurturing sort of orientation, but with weak action. So it's, if you can imagine the metaphor of just holding the baby instead of, doing a bunch, running around, trying to make things better. This sort of orientation is more just holding the baby while he's crying and waiting for, just nurturing him that way. It's not a laziness per se, but it's a sort of a non-doing action, if that makes any sense. All right, Sunday, as I said before, the moon is still close. And so you still have that nurturing sort of non-action, if you will. Got the sextile that we just picked up. We have Mercury square to Neptune. And then the important one, the foot stomper, is that Sun trine Pluto and Sun square Jupiter. That one is, I think, the highlight. But they're all sort of connected in this. And I find that sort of interesting. And the I-Ching, as we'll see, is a great summary of all of them, in my opinion. Then we get into next week. So Monday, the 17th, 17th, there's a lot going on. The moon is almost approaching the mid-waxing period. A lot of inconjuncts. Well, not a lot, but two of them. Mars and Saturn. I don't have a whole lot to add than what we've already talked about. So let's move on to Tuesday. Now we pick up Mars and Neptune. This is so weaker action is now almost dangerous to act, because why? Isn't the trine a positive thing? Well, no, that's not. The green doesn't signify good, and the trine just makes it easy energy. So a weaker Mars in a fall is easily swayed by Neptune, the planet of fantasy and non-reality. And so it's almost can be dangerous to follow the lead of Neptune right now in this sort of weakened state. So sort of back to the same non-doing, I think, is the answer there, which we'll get to. Then finally on Wednesday, the 19th, look at that. There's your T-square with the halfway waxing moon, midway. We've got a square over to Jupiter, the moon, and the trap is the ego. And with the trap being the ego, now it's front and center. You can't hide anymore. This is the tumbling, and some of us are going to get snared into this feeling of tumbling ego, and you're going to try to escape. And in escapism, normally turns out, at best case, you don't get satisfied. Worst case, you create more problems in your life. So I would watch out for escapism, for ego. Poor little ego. He's going to act like a little kid to this day, Wednesday the 19th. So watch out for that, acting like a little baby and trying to escape it. So we're going to talk about what to do here shortly. There you have it, T-square. And this is I focus on this because this is what we're going to use for our conversion over to the solution, where the sun is. Take the highlighter away and let's talk to I-Ching. This is from May 13th to May 19th. I'm starting to really, not that I never did enjoy the I-Ching readings, but I'm really enjoying my time with that. I'm modifying it. I'm contemplating including you guys in there with maybe a live stream during that, but I'm not comfortable with that just yet. It's sort of a really spiritual time to sit down in a meditative state, inviting the right people, the right entities, and I stipulate very specific boundaries about who's allowed to participate in this I-Ching reading. But anyway, through the coins, and what we got was one change line. And what happens when you change this yin to yang? You get 3 yang. That's heaven. And you get 3 yin. So you got yang over yin, which means all sorts of conflict. But for now, we're not there yet. We're pre-change. All right. So you have one change line at 4, line 4, and hexagram 20, overview, wind over earth. Overview desires composure and contemplation. Do not underestimate the power of this force. Like the wind blowing across the treetops, its presence is perceived through the effect it has on everything it touches. During a period between events, the practice of stillness with awareness is beneficial. By mindfully observing the true nature of things. You see the double play on the word nature? That was in the collective unconscious. That was in the collective dreams. Big. That was a meme. Nature. But by mindfully observing the true nature of things, by apprehending the rhythms and cycles that guide all creation, we can discover and explore the natural laws that rule our lives. So we have the word nature in 2 different contexts in the same sentence. Nature and explore the natural laws that rule our lives. Basically, it's the desire to know. It's the desire to assess. The desire for better awareness is what this influence is. Line 4, and I say this very importantly because it goes into our rave mandala solution. So listen up. The independence of the guest allows him or her to offer fresh insight while being close enough to be heard clearly and understood. So I'm going to let that sit there, but this will come to light when we see the rave mandala and the solution. Let's let's go ahead and talk the I-Ching and the solution. So what we did, we put the change line in. See what we get? You get yang over yin, heaven over earth. And yang over yin is very important because the reverse of that, if you had yin over yang, there's going to have harmony. You're going to have contentment. But you don't have that when the yin is when the yang is up top. Yang over yin, it is a standstill. That's the nice way of saying it's confusion and conflict. So I'm going to read pretty much the whole thing because it applies to us for sure. In periods of standstill or stagnation, confusion and disorder can prevail. Surprise, surprise. Small-minded and self-serving forces arise when powers of clarity and creativity are on the decline. Listen to this. Inmates are overrunning the prison and its guards. Isn't that interesting? Because some states are releasing prisons, and sometimes a certain percentage of them are life sentence prisoners. So that's interesting. We're talking like tens of thousands, to my understanding. In such times, summon up your fortitude. Don't shine your light, simply withdraw. The wise take shelter in their own integrity and quietly remain faithful to their principles. Retreat from public activities and common exchanges until the times favor direct action. Concentrate on personal affairs with humble dignity, even if that means letting go of some short-term rewards. Desiring to change such a situation too quickly creates extra conflict. By accepting some hardship while striving to maintain integrity, you are all preparing for future growth. Remember that a seed of prosperity is often hidden inside the husk of misfortune. There's a lot there. Holy crap. But I'm telling you, the yang over yin is a very conflicted state. And so basically you don't want to be out there in the fray. That's what it's sort of saying. It's not being aloof or withdrawing as an escape. It's simply being smart and taking shelter and remaining quiet. You don't want to become a target. So now we put in our conversion. And remember, you've got that. This is the Wednesday, the 19th, and you got the sun in a T-square. So we plot that, and that goes into hexagram 8 in the Rave mandala, and we have Taurus as our solution, sidereal solution. So let's get to know gate 8. It's the gate of contribution. Wait, I thought the I-Ching said to sort of retreat. Well, yes, but before you retreat, here's what T.A. White was saying, or is allowed to say. The 8th gate says, I know I can. This is the gate of the individual contribution to the whole. So somehow, while you're withdrawing, you're going to have to contribute somehow. And it's going to be a mental construct. All right. The 8th gate does not lead either logically or abstractly. It can only act as an example. So this is what we're doing. The 8th gate stands up, gets everyone's attention and says, I know I can find the way, and leaves. Those who wish to take the chance and follow are welcomed. And if no one wants to take the heed, the knower will go on alone. That's you. So you're not demanding people. You're not judging them for not following your advice. You're simply spewing your thoughts, your opinion, and you don't expect anybody to really listen or to follow. You're just making sure that everyone knows what your thoughts are. The contribution of the individual can never be pressed into the collective. It would only lead to resistance. You're not forcing yourself. You're not forcing your opinion. You're simply offering it and then not expecting anybody to follow. All right, let's get set up for our final slide, and we'll hear from our sponsor in the meantime. InnerZenchen.com for inner peace, inner harmony, inner contentment. Offering mental health services, astrology readings, natal charts, progressions, and even human design. We also have hypnotherapy. Visit innersension.com. All right, here we are. Remember what the influence was? The top of this chart is the influence, and that's the tumbling ego. Now to go a little bit into that, it's not quite a maze or anything, but I think confusion is appropriate here. Maybe feeling confused inside, and that gets projected out onto the world. And so all you see maybe is disarray, or people who don't know themselves or acting like little kids, that sort of thing. But in reality, the majority of this tumbling is within, not out there. Okay. So here's our best solution. Remember, we are incorporating the I-Ching 12. It's standstill. Confusion and disorder might prevail. Patience is key. Display and maintain integrity. And then if there is misfortune, look deeper into it, because there will be a seed of prosperity. The rave mandala is gate 8. So the gate of contribution. So we're not just going away. We're offering something loudly. Contribute loudly without pushing your ideas onto the collective. Offer insight and then let it be. Don't create resistance by being too pushy. Now, the Sidereal Taurus is so nice when we combine that with the I-Ching, because it's deliberate, it's dependable, it's practical, it's patient. Integrity was used in both readings there. So the I-Ching and the Taurus benefits. Taurus is also reliable, but can be stubborn, possessive, and somewhat materialistic. So here's how we get to the overlap. What's the overlap between all of this? Here's our recommended solution for the week. Ego this week has the same fate as Venus last week. Ego tumbles, gets confused, loses sense of reality, etc., etc. This gets projected outward, and we perceive confusion and disorder out there when it is really within. The I-Ching and the Sidereal Taurus are about quite a direct overlap as you can get for the solution. It's about being patient. It's about being reliable, dependable, and to use integrity in all matters. The rave also overlaps in prodding us to contribute via vocalizing ideas. You can offer insights, but don't demand or judge or threaten others. Be willing to go it alone if no one else heeds your words. If there is misfortune, be sure to look deeper, as there are guaranteed to be seeds of prosperity in those situations. Here's another antidote. Finding the stillness, and this is a direct overlap of the stand still, but it's a different meaning. But finding the stillness within you the whole week. Stay in the now, and this is what Taurus can help you with. Taurus is the experiencer of the zodiac, and he uses your 5 senses. What do you in the material world? What do you see? What do you hear? What do you taste? What do you smell? What do you feel? And if you can stay in that present moment, I took a week like this when I was healing out in the middle of nowhere, homeless in a way, living in a tent. I don't consider the wilderness, if you belong there, to be homeless. But anyway, you can find, I tried for a whole week in gardening, trying to create, a garden space, trying to protect it. But I was in that week, I committed to just staying in the present moment. In other words, trying not to think about everything that I'm experiencing, but rather just notice and be in the present moment. It's very hard. It's very hard to stay there. But you stay there through your 5 senses without thinking about it all. And it's hard. It's hard to even see a tree with the moving leaves and not think, oh, it's windy out there. Well, that's language. That's adding more than just noticing. As soon as my mind kicks into association mode, oh, there's wind, I am no longer in the present moment. So I have to stay observing the leaves and just noticing without adding more to the story, either a judgment, a categorization. Oh, that's a strong wind. or labeling anything or trying to figure out what the name is of it. All that's extra language. As soon as that language apparatus in the mind starts, boom, you're out of the present moment. So if you can do this, this will be a great practice week to do it. But finding stillness the entire week, staying in the present, staying in the now. And I would also add in there following your intuition, following your inner authority. If you're into human design, that's probably the best suggestion that I have. Finding your inner authority and following that guidance. And you should be doing that anyway, not just this week. But finding the stillness and integrity was the other big foot stomper. All right, folks. I think that's it. I think that's pretty complete. It's a little shorter today, but I appreciate y'all being here. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for your shares. And above all, thank you for your awesome comments, all of you. I appreciate everybody's comments. And I love the tribe that we have. So thank you. See you on Telegram, by the way. Take care. See you next week.